So, talking about Piraeus, let's go to Piraeus. Let's welcome the president of Piraeus Industry and Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Korkidis. Hello. Hello, thank you very much for the invitation and for the really interesting pieces of advice and news you have been sharing with us. Thank you. And I'm really glad that you started this discussion with a survey, so facts, data, because if you have no data, all you got is just an opinion like everybody else. If you have data, you can argument and document this opinion. 15 days ago, when we discussed, you entitled your contribution "The Financial Revolution to 2021," which means that you're extremely optimistic. Actually, I remember you asked me, am I being too optimistic? I think you have been influenced by the events related to the bicentennial of the revolution, maybe. Yes, that's true. So given that you're a person coming from the marketplace, you've been through thick and thin, I'm pretty sure you have your reasons for being optimistic. So the question is the following. Is optimistic something that we truly need? And how can this feeling survive in a country in which pessimists represent an overwhelming majority? We overproduce pessimism, and I think this poisons public debate. And let me include myself in that, journalists have a great role to play in that, in disseminating pessimism. Every business person has to be optimistic because we are the ones to plan and implement. The road from theory to practice is not that big. It's not that big one. I listened to the politicians before, and I love listening to politicians talking about entrepreneurship and businesses. It's a very decent, let's say, effort. And starting by what you said before, the fact that Korea is just a click away. Let me tell you something. It doesn't take to be that smart in order to press the button and go to Korea. And let me explain what I mean. You know that Greek shipping ranks first in the world. We have more than 4,000 ships with a Greek flag. Most of them have been built in Korea and in China. So it would be much wiser, it would have been much wiser to build these ships here in Greece instead of pressing a button and going to Korea. We don't have to go to Korea. And I'm saying that because we were the first to develop a cluster, a synergy, a cluster on shipping activities. Sorry for that. Sorry for my interruption, but it was the first globalized industry. Okay, because shipping was globalized long before globalization came in the forefront. Exactly. And we worked with the top player, the top international player, the Hellenic Association of Greek Ship Owners, the Chamber of shipping-related companies, and our own chamber, and we created a cluster located in Greece, companies that pay their taxes in Greece, in order to support Greek-owned shipping. So I can fully understand the ideas, the intentions, the theoretical approach of the politicians, but when we talk about the practice, about reality, let me tell you something. We, the ones who built this cluster, found no business environment in order to help this cluster prosper. We've spent 10 years with our shipyards closed. So the very infrastructure for which we have paid a lot of money, I'm talking as a country, as a population, as taxpayers, this was the legacy, the national endowment, if you like. We have denigrated it, and now we have the zero shipyard, and there's string demand. In Elefsina, there we have a lot of pending issues, and we have the Skaramangas shipyards with the first tender being declared invalid, being declared off. So what does it take in order to help our agri-food evolve? What does it take for a Mediterranean country like ours, in which we spend, when we have acres, when the cost for the square kilometer used for farming purposes is sold at 18,000 euros, when in Belgium, in the Netherlands, they sell the same acre for 500,000 euros. Okay, although, and you know what are the climatic conditions there. So it's good to discuss about entrepreneurship, but if you're not part of that, then you can spend countless hours just talking about that. And we are into this game, and we know about that. So I've heard about winners and losers. Let me ask you something. Which is the category of the companies that have been bankrupt and the others that have not? What is the category for those who pay the bills and those who tax evade? What's the category for the viable organizations and those indebted? So, before we start talking about the crisis being an opportunity, and before we start talking about how the pandemic is an opportunity, it is an opportunity for tourism. It is an opportunity for cruises. It is an opportunity for shipping. And I'm now using the terms of, from my industry, from my position, because we're talking now from a place in Piraeus. So no crisis is an opportunity. Maybe it's a way to sweeten the pill in order for the patient to stay optimistic. This crisis and the health-related crisis is a curse. And that's something confirmed by the fact that although we have had a GDP of 189 billions in 2019, now it tumbled back to 168 billion euros. In 2019, we were quite hopeful that we could make it back to 200 or 237 billion euros of GDP, which is the actual size of the Greek economy. We were that hopeful. Currently, we're not doing right to our justice to our country given our GDP. We have 7 strong pillars, economic pillars. Other countries do not have this, let's say, privilege. So let me tell you the following. I fully understand, and I do have expectations, but all these years I never seen this spring going off, the spring of Greek economy. I don't know if our economy will bounce back in 2021 or 22 or 23. So, what about this economic revolution you talked about? How do you define it? Yeah, let me define it in the following way. Digital revolution. I will fully agree on that. We need to take leapfrogs. When I took on the chamber, I remember that only 4% of companies had an ESOP. In 2018, it was 17%. It's quite easy to turn this 17% into 34 and have such digital presence instead of duplicating 4%. This is the kind of revolution we have to. This is the kind of revolution we have to take. And of course, we have the so-called investment revolution. You know what the starting point of this revolution will be? Domestic investors, because we never had the environment to support investments. We never had this tax-free reserve that we could use in order as an investment tool instead of putting it into our pocket. Mr. Skylakakis was very quick to say that SMEs have actually represent a loss for us, because it's better having an ecosystem with large companies that secure tax collection, which means we have to shut down 95% of companies in Greece, or help them grow. Yes, we can help them grow. Yes, we're okay with synergies, we're okay with clusters, we agree on partnerships, but, and I think that's bad, we haven't done that in the past. You know why we haven't done that? Because when cooperations were established, everybody tried to make money out of that. As a result, there is a reluctance and a hatred vis-à-vis corporations, because you know that the co-op was a way to lose money. And there are certain weaknesses that we still perpetuate. This is the revolution for me. We have to get rid of these distortions that have been tormenting our economy, and we have to help competitiveness and organizations to grow. This is the revolution for me, and I truly believe that we can do it. So, with an eye to the future, let's leave past behind. Yes, I agree. What should we do? We have more than 1,000 SME business owners attending this event? What should they be attentive of? What should their next steps be? You have a very experienced business person, and I'm pretty sure you have some really important piece of advice to share with us.
I would say that I will use an English word. What shall we do in the days to come? A restart. Let's take restart letters one by one. One is realism. The second, investments, synergies, speed, absorption of funds, liquidity, and luck. But not business luck, but lucky enough to have a stable business environment. Well, you are now became an advertiser. No, wishful thinking. But that was quite innovative. I would choose the word restart, but it has a lot of letters to think, Greek letters. What we need to pay attention to, not to allow to change the market as was the case with the coronavirus, but reform it. Not mutations, but reform. Because as we know, I focus on SMEs. I need to tell you that we need to manage the next day in a business way. We need a survival guide for the post-COVID era. Why this? Because we need to have a roadmap that will take us out of the mentality of subsidies, because the money is huge. Nevertheless, so we need to have a roadmap that will allow us to think beyond subsidies and go to restart funds. We know that money costs. It's not given for free. We do not expect to have it for free this time, but we need to understand that businesses need liquidity, but they have a lot of debts to handle. And we let aside the sovereign debt of Greece. Europe talks about a manifesto of the next day, but I will say that we will need a moratorium of debts and payments, but a moratorium also demands a haircut of loans as well. But without mishandling people who are paying their who pay their debts. Thank you, Mr. Korkidis, for your intervention.